Hello and welcome back to me roasting books, I guess. I first saw this concept on LilyCReads channel like a million years ago, called Shit Books I Hate, and I've always wanted to do that because there are a lot of shit books that I hate, that I've unfortunately read. And also LilyCReads, I've seen that since she posted that video she's dropped out of university, which is kind of like, that's what I want for myself. Here we go, I have a nice selection of shit books that I hate, like a lot of them. And some of them I don't really hate, some of them is just like there's one part of it that I'm like, I just don't like this. But others I really hate. Okay, so first up on the list we have books that I hate but aren't necessarily shit. Like, I can see why other people would like them, but I personally despise them. First we have If I Stay, which is another one of those kind of like cyclic ones where like she's not dying of a terminal illness, but her entire family died in a car crash and she was also in the car crash, and she's kind of in the hospital deciding whether she wants to live or die as her soul. And this one was another one that was really popular, which was why I read it. I don't want to get left in the dust, so I read If I Stay, and I didn't like it, purely for that one scene where they're like making out or having sex or something, and he decides to play her like a guitar, like pretend that her body is a guitar and play her like a guitar, and then she pretends that his body is a cello and she plays him like a cello. See, morally, in my opinion, that is a bad thing to do. Just, I mean, like, morally it's not a bad thing to do, but emotionally, psychologically, it's a bad thing to make me read about that. I don't want to read about that. I hate it. I didn't like it, and the whole part where she, like, her entire family is dead and she's like, well, do I want to live or not? I wouldn't, personally. But, you know, that's how it is. And this next one, I may be crucified for this, but it is Solitaire by Oseman. It really hurts me to say this, actually, because I really like Oseman and all of her other books that she's written. I just really did not like Solitaire. It was her debut novel. She wrote it when she was 18 or 17 or something. And you can tell, I can tell. Maybe the fact that I knew that it was her debut novel, she wrote it when she was really young, I could tell, but I really did not like this book. I actually really hated this book. So basically it's this girl and she's in sixth form, and all of a sudden there's this like group called Solitaire, and they're like playing pranks at the school, and then there's this guy who she makes friends with and she thinks, oh, maybe he can be Solitaire, and it's like her trying to work out who is Solitaire, like who's doing this, and then Solitaire ends up being really bad, but she also kind of has like a mental breakdown in the middle and like tries to kill herself but doesn't. I didn't really like the characters. They didn't really act like real characters act. I didn't really like the story. I didn't find it interesting. I didn't really care who Solitaire was because they were really only doing pranks at a school. But then it turns out Solitaire is this one guy who used to be friends with her when she was in primary school, and then he saw her playing Solitaire looking depressed, so he decided to make her less depressed by burning down her school. Yeah, I didn't like it. And the main character is really rude. She's a rude person. And if I met her in real life, I just wouldn't want to be friends with her, which is her whole deal. She doesn't like having friends, she doesn't like being friends with people. Good, because I don't want to be friends with her. Kind of similar, in the same category. It's not shit, but I hate it. Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This was another one of those really popular ones that everyone was reading, because they were all like, oh yeah, it's about fandom and culture and like how people can like kind of run away with themselves in books and like in their hobbies and like not be a person. So basically this girl, she writes this really famous webcomic, and she meets someone at school who is like the most popular fanfiction writer for her webcomic. And I just thought that the characters were really cringy. She didn't speak while at school, and neither did he speak while he was at school. So they passed notes because they couldn't speak to each other, but they could speak to each other, they just didn't want to. And they called... Her dad's nickname for her was Eggs, and I really dislike eggs, so... And I have OCD, so possibly this is an unfair reason to not like it, but I have OCD. Every time they called her Eggs, I actually wanted to throw up. I hated it so much, you don't even know. I didn't like it. She's a weird person. She, like the main character, I didn't like her at all. She didn't talk, she didn't do anything, and she just kind of like sat in her room and was like, oh, I don't like people, I don't like going out places, I don't want to go to a party, I don't like anyone in real life, I don't like my family, even though her family were like really nice. She was like, oh, I hate my family, I don't want to talk to them ever. And it's like, shut the fuck up. I hated her. I actually couldn't finish that book. Maybe if I'd finished it I would have liked it, but I hated it so much that I stopped reading it. So, and that's like a big thing for me, because I don't like not finishing books. I will slug through it if I have to, but no, I really hated it. Okay, next category is books that I kind of hate. I hate them and they're shit, but they're not, I don't have like a raging, fire burning fuel hatred of them. We have Ariadnis, which I'm not sure if that's how you say it. It was an alright book. Basically it's in the future and there's these two cities, and one city is like all about nature and one city is all about like technology and stuff, and they are fighting, but there are these two girls who go between them or something, and they're like the chosen ones of their city, and I can't actually remember if they're twins or if they are girlfriends. I think they were twins, and then one of them was a lesbian, and that's why I read it, because I heard that there were lesbians in it. But in fact there weren't. There was one pair of lesbians and it wasn't a big part of the thing, and I didn't really care about it, and I didn't like any of the people, so it didn't actually make a difference to me. I didn't like it, so maybe they weren't twins, maybe they were girlfriends. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happened in this book. But basically it's really confusing the way that they describe the cities. It's like one is on top of the other and they have to go through this giant tree. And it's, I don't understand it at all. Like the gravity of it doesn't make sense to me. So they have to compete in a trial to stop a war between the two places because they disagree on how to save the world. Basically the world is in danger, and so one of the cities thinks that like getting in tune with nature is how you like save the world, and then the other one thinks that technology is how you save the world. And like this kind of like a bunch of shit happens, and they like kind of they have to run through places, and then places are like collapsing, things are like, people are dying, but I just don't understand how. Like the way that the world is described, I don't understand what is happening. I just didn't like the book. I just didn't like it. It was boring to me. So Hello, this is editing me. I lost the footage for this, but basically this is The Fandom by Anna Day. I loved the first book, hated the second book. She won a competition to get published, and it's about these people who are really obsessed with this fandom. Basically, so they go into this book and they accidentally kill the main character of the book. And they're like, oh fuck, that main character was meant to save everyone. What are we going to do now? So what they do is they get one of the girls to pretend to be that main character and do all the things that the main character does. The thing is, she doesn't have the same heart as the main character. Like, she falls in love with someone else, things like that. I really liked it. Like, it was really interesting. It's like kind of like every like 2014 fangirl's dream to be in the Hunger Games, but no one actually wants to be in the Hunger Games, and you realise that once they're in the book, you know? But then there was the sequel, which, I mean, The Curse of the Second Book, you know? It's really thin, a lot smaller than the first one, which kind of makes me feel like it was a bit more rushed. It's just shit. It's just shit. They go back into the fandom, and it turns out that the people in the fandom are trying to get this fanfiction writer. One of the girls in this one is a fanfiction writer, and they were trying to get her to kind of write the book differently, write the ending of the book differently, and then everyone will believe that ending of the book rather than the good ending of the book. So it's like that kind of thing where if enough people believe it, it'll come true. So they want these people to go back to the real world and write the bad ending so that the bad guys win, and enough people will believe that becomes true. There really was a great lesbian or asexual storyline, but they just decided not to go with that and make it boring, and I don't even know what happens in this one. It's just bad. I just really didn't like it. I just really did not like it. There's Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews, which is a kind of like, you know, stereotypical misogynistic white guy. Has a token black friend and a cute girl who he doesn't care about as a person, just wants to hang out with because she's fit. But in this one, the girl is dying and they are really rude to the token black friend. I really did not like it. The way they talked about his friend Earl he was just like this giant stereotype, and the way they talked about him was really dehumanizing and terrible. And then there's this girl who is dying, and this story isn't even about her, it's about him because he wants to fuck her. And it's like, I'm just bored of it. I'm just bored of stories from this bland man's perspective, because, like, I mean, he's really just any bland man who's ever written a book about teenagers ever. He's so boring. The main character is so boring. He's just an asshole, basically. Selfish. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like this book because there's this girl who dies and he's upset because he wanted to have sex with her. And the only reason he actually hangs out with her in the first place is because his mum makes him. But it just felt like that the main character just had a dislike for women, and a dislike for black people, and I'm not sure if he changed throughout the book. He didn't become a better person, so. And then we have Lobsters by Tom Ellen and Lucy Ivison. I hated it. So my friend gave me this because she was getting rid of a bunch of her books, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take them. It's about people who are leaving school and going to uni, and it's set in England. And basically everyone just is obsessed with sex. Who has had sex, who hasn't had sex, who's a virgin, who isn't a virgin. And the way they go about it is really immature. The two main characters are both virgins at the start, tragically, because that's obviously the worst thing that can happen to a teenager. I really hate this book. I really hate this book. And it's just the way they go about everything is really immature, which kind of makes me feel like it's a book for younger teens. But then the things that they actually talk about are really like kind of adult. They talk about like sex, but in a really immature way. And I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. The main characters were annoying because all they thought about was sex. All they thought about was sex and how cool they were and how sex affected their social standing. And it just really annoyed me. It was really boring. And there were no gay people, which bored me. And it says it's a love story, but I don't even think it was a love story. I don't think that they fell in love in the end. I think it was really boring. And these two people just had sex because they were obsessed with it. Anyway, so on to the books that are really shit and that I really hate. So first of all, we have Felicia's Journey by William Trevor, and I'm not sure if this is a popular book. You may not have heard of it. I was forced to read this in English in year 11 and I hated it. I hated every second of it. It's about this girl set in Ireland during the Troubles, and she gets pregnant for a British soldier. So she moves to England to go find this soldier because she's naively believes that he'll just that he actually loves her and he's going to take care of her and her baby. But he isn't, and she can't find him anyway. So then she finds a serial killer to go live with who has this thing where he's like mentally ill and obsessed with like helping young girls, and then once he's helped them he kills them because he's obsessed with them needing him, but once they don't need him anymore he's like, oh okay, well you can't need anyone else, so I'm gonna kill you now. And I hate it. I hated it. All the characters were really stupid. Felicia was so fucking stupid. She was an idiot. She literally lived in a house with a serial killer, and she really like she saw a bunch of signs that he was a serial killer, and she was like, you know what, I don't actually mind. Like maybe I'll live here because it's better than living on the streets. And then she was really against abortion. She didn't want to have an abortion, but she let the serial killer talk her into getting an abortion. And then she just felt really depressed after having the abortion. It's like, well, if you didn't want to have an abortion, you shouldn't have been manipulated into getting an abortion, okay? Just because you're stupid doesn't mean... She's so stupid. And the guy was really unlikable because he's a serial killer. But the way that they talked about him was also like a little bit fat phobic. It was like, oh, he's fat, so he's obviously like a deranged psycho serial killer. I hated it. I hated it so much. Felicia was so stupid. She went to Britain thinking this guy who had sex with her once was in love with her and would like marry her. And then once she escaped from the serial killer, because the serial killer kills himself because she manages to escape, once she escapes from him she decides to just live on the street forever rather than go back to her family that are actually missing her. She's just a fucking idiot and I hate her. Like, I had to read this so many times and I had to write so much shit about it and I just hated it. I had to go into a fucking exam with this book and try and find passages out of the book that proved the point that they were trying to get me to make that I didn't want to fucking make because I don't care. And I didn't write any annotations at the end because I realised that, you know, everything that I actually cared about the book, like actually being good, that I thought, oh, I mean, I'm not liking it so far, but maybe the end will make it good. I realised the end didn't make it good. I didn't write any annotation because it's like, well, it's just shit at the end. It's just shit. There's nothing I can say that will... It was just so shit. I just didn't care. I just didn't care. I hated it. It was horrible. Okay. Next one is Call Me By Your Name by Aciman. He fucks a peach. He's really, like, if I was 17 and I was crushing on like a 30-year-old, I would be really embarrassed about that because it'd be like, I would be thinking like, oh, it's never gonna happen, like this is really embarrassing crush I've got here. And then if it actually happened, I would call the police. And the fact that this is like a love story, and it's not framed as like anything bad. It's like this man is a predator. I forgot to say, basically this is about a guy who his father has students, PhD students, come and stay and study with him or something, do work with him in the summer, and he's 17 and he gets a crush on one of the guys who comes to stay with him in Italy. And then they have a relationship and he fucks a peach, and it's just really uncomfortable. Everything made me really uncomfortable. Everything was described in a lot of unnecessary detail that I didn't like. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. And all of this, like, everything is just really uncomfortable. Everything. I was afraid when he showed up, afraid when he failed to, afraid when he looked at me, more frightened yet when he didn't. The agony wore me out in the end. The fear never went away. I woke up to it, watched it turn to joy when I heard him shower in the morning, and knew he'd be downstairs with us for breakfast, only to watch it curdle when, rather than have coffee, he would dash through the house and right away set to work in the garden. It just doesn't seem like really healthy to just be scared of the person that you're like crushing on, especially if they're like 30 and you're 17. I just hate it. I really hate it. I really dislike this book, and some people love it, but I hate it because I dislike predatory romances. And I thought I might like this book because it's gay people, but then I realised there was a giant age gap, and the whole kind of book is about it feeling uncomfortable and feeling stressful, liking this guy who is so much older than you, and you know it can't happen because he's so much older than you, but it does happen. Yeah, I really didn't like it. Next we have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Basically this book just feels like some incel who had a hard-on for the 80s decided to write a book about a self-insert version of him getting everything he's ever wanted. And I feel like that's a very obvious part of it, like that's very obvious in the book. I hate it. Ready Player One is about this future in which the internet is kind of everything and everyone's kind of poor, but there's the guy who made the internet as they know it, he died, and he has set up a little like treasure hunt where if the people finish the treasure hunt, then they'll inherit his fortune. So there's this straight white guy who, you guessed it, wins. Well, I mean he does win in the end, but basically he gets the first clue. I just hate it so much. Basically it's all kind of like 80s themed, so this guy has to know about the 80s, even though like the main guy wasn't alive in the 80s, and he's like, oh, the 80s are so good, like they were the best era, but the only way he knows that is because this guy who invented the internet was obsessed with the 80s, and he's had to be obsessed with the 80s if he wanted to win the thing. So he's just like taken his morals from this person, and then he's best friends with this guy online, but actually this guy is a black lesbian. This white guy who he's friends with online is a black lesbian, but she pretends to be a white guy online because of racism. But like I could actually have liked that character. I could actually have related to that character because of lesbianism, but I couldn't. Because I only found that out at the end, or I didn't even know that she was a woman. I just didn't care about the character. And maybe he was doing a thing where like, oh, men only care about male characters, so we'll get them to care about this character, and then, oh, whoops, it's actually a black lesbian. But no, I don't want, that's not what I want. I want to care about the character, and I don't care. I don't care about straight white men. I'm sorry. Like I do, but I've read so many books where straight white men are the main character, and seen so many films like that, that they don't really interest me anymore. I want a story from a different perspective, because, you know, variety is the spice of life, and having this one main character who seems very similar to all the other main characters is kind of boring to me. I find it boring. I don't like it. But this guy is like representation is important, but we don't get the representation until like the very last bit of the book. And it's like, I don't care about that. I don't actually want that representation. I would like to have had the representation throughout the entire book. Basically, the people start like trying to come after him because they want to get the prize, and he manages to kind of like outsmart them and run away, things like that. And then there's like this bit in the book where he kind of stops, the narration stops, and he's like this chubby guy, can't get the girl, like really poor, not famous at all. And then the narration kind of stops, and because he has found this first clue, he's got a bunch of money and sponsorships and stuff, and he's like famous now, and he's got the girl, and he's also been doing a lot of exercise, so he's no longer chubby. But the thing is, that was very much, we didn't see him working towards those goals. We didn't get to see that, so it did not feel very fulfilling, because he just suddenly had these things that he didn't have before, and it felt very much like wish fulfillment. It felt very much like that the writer wanted that for himself, so he just wrote it in for his character, and I didn't like it. And I also didn't like that the girl, who was the main love interest, she's like, oh, I'm so ugly, I can't show my face, it's so ugly. And then she just had like a birthmark, a big birthmark over her eye. It's like, okay, fucking Zuko, you can't show your face because you have a birthmark over your eye, you're so embarrassed about that. I don't it's like, I'm sorry, but like, she's like 17. I feel like if you've had that your entire life and you're this cool girl online, everyone knows you, I feel like you would have gone to therapy to get over that by now. What, you can't ever see anyone in real life because you have a birthmark? It just really pissed me off, because, you know, most people aren't that self-conscious about one small part of their identity. And the fact that the guy has to be like, oh no, I love you anyway, you're beautiful anyway, because I love you, because I'm a straight white man and I've given you permission to like yourself. So then finally, we have my most hated book, Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. Oh god. I read this when I was like 14, 15 or 16, one of those ages. And again, it's a dystopian future where girls can be one of three things. They can be wives, they can be prostitutes, or they can be just like witch creatures who live in the sewers. I don't know what the name was. And basically they grow up in this like school where they learn how to be wives, and they compete to be wives, and like the best looking and the best acting with the best personalities for wivery, I guess. And when they're 16, a bunch of boys come and choose which one they want for a wife. So they have to like compete to like choose their husband. And basically they have to be like these perfect people, like these perfect versions of themselves. And like the thing is, this girl has been told her entire life how to get a husband, how to be perfect. Don't have sex with them. Don't have sex before marriage, because that would make you a prostitute, then you'll have to be a whore. You know, don't seem over eager, don't seem under eager. Please these boys as much as you want. And this girl, she just becomes obsessed with this one boy, and she's like, yeah, he's gonna be my husband, I love him. And he kind of takes advantage of her, and he's like, yeah, we should have sex, and then, but because we're going to be husband and wife, it doesn't matter because we're going to have sex anyway, like, so we might as well have sex now. And then she has sex with him, and then he doesn't choose her, and she's like, what? And then she has a bit of a breakdown because no one chooses her, so she's going to have to be a prostitute or something. And then because she has that breakdown, they make her be one of the sewer witches. I just really didn't like her. She's like best friends with this girl, and she kind of has to choose between the boy and the girl, and she obviously chooses the boy. I think in the end her friend kills herself because no one chooses her. It's just terrible. I just really didn't like it. It just ended really on a really depressing note, and it's supposed to be like this, oh, dystopia, feminism thing, and it was just really depressing and didn't really tell me much about our society. Like, I know that women can be swept to the sidelines and punished if they don't live up to what men want, but like, this was so depressing, and the main character was so stupid. You've been told how to get a husband your entire fucking life. You can get a husband if you really want to, but she has a mental breakdown and doesn't. It's like, just sort yourself out, and don't, you know, self-sabotage, and you can do what the fuck you want. I just hated this so much. I felt empty and angry and upset when I finished this book, and I hated it. I really hated it. I really did. I liked it at first because they had all these, like, they had as many clothes as they wanted, as much makeup as they wanted, and I was like, I would love as many clothes as I want and as much makeup as I want, because like, I enjoy expressing myself through clothes and makeup. But she just made it seem like those things were like part of the oppression rather than, and yeah, there are some people who are like, oh yeah, it's part of the oppression, you have to wear makeup, and it's like, yes, okay, I've been socialised to like wearing makeup, but I like wearing makeup. It doesn't matter that I was socialised into that. I now like wearing makeup. I enjoy wearing makeup. I cannot wear makeup, but I enjoy wearing makeup. I just hate it so much. I just hate this book so much. I did want to burn it, but I wanted to talk about it online first because I disliked it so much, and I just wanted to let everyone know that I dislike it. Oh, and they all have like eating disorders and stuff. I just hated this book. I just hated it so much. And you know what? It wasn't helpful for 15-year-old me, who had already had a bit of a mental breakdown by that point. I had my first mental breakdown at 12, like breakdown, and then I got a bit better when I was 15, and then I got a bit worse when I was 17, but when I was 15, this really wasn't what I needed, because I was kind of enjoying my life. I was enjoying wearing makeup and clothes that I liked, and exploring being girly and liking books, and this book just kind of seemed to want to tell me that everything I've ever learnt about being girly and being a girl was the way to end up being a slave to the patriarchy, whereas I can like clothes and makeup and my appearance without being a slave to the patriarchy. I just didn't like it. I just really didn't like it. It was not fun for me. I mean, 2 days maybe it put me in a really bad mood, and then a few weeks a slightly bad mood, and then every time anyone ever bloody mentioned it, it put me into a terrible, horrible bad mood. Like if people talk about this book, I actually just hate them. because I hate it. I disliked it so intensely that I don't want people to talk about it. Anyway, those are my shit books that I hate. Maybe I'll do a shit books that I love, because there are some shit books that I actually enjoyed. And I can tell, like, I know that they're shit, but I've really enjoyed them. So maybe I'll do that. Thanks for watching. Bye.